very good morning to you. For Telesur, I'm Regan Devines in Caracas, Venezuela. Thank you so much for being here with us on From the South. Today's top story takes us to Venezuela, where the Foreign Minister, Delcy Rodriguez, called on the Colombian government to assume a greater role in the irregular situation of food and gasoline smuggling from Venezuela into Colombia. The Venezuelan Foreign Minister said that the closure of the two border crossing points is beneficial to making the point of respect of human rights in both countries. Rodriguez is scheduled to meet her Colombian counterpart, Maria Angela Holguin, this morning to discuss the closing of the border, Colombian paramilitaries and other bilateral issues.
Así como la presentación por parte. Nosotros esperamos de la reunión de mañana.
We expect that during our meeting a more precise evaluation will be made by the Colombian authorities regarding how they will resolve the border issues which are now beyond the control of authorities.
Still in Venezuela, the president, Nicolas Maduro, has proposed the creation of a political movement for peace that would include Colombian migrants living in the country. He also warned Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos that he was being deceived by the Colombian oligarchy with lies about Venezuela. This comes after Santos demanded a fair treatment of all Colombians in Venezuela. Maduro also spoke of the government's effort to protect Venezuela from paramilitary attacks and smuggling across the border.
Proteger a nuestro pueblo.
We are protecting our country from the attacks of capitalist paramilitaries linked to Colombia's right wing. That's why they are irritated, because we have blocked one of the places through which they were causing the greatest harm to Venezuela in this war. I will continue ahead, and I hope the Colombian government tunes into this fight against criminal economy.
And Maduro also warned former Colombian President Alvaro Uribe against continued actions against Venezuela, saying his government would respond if forced to do so. After a week or so of exposing videos that confirm involvement by Uribe and the United States in plots to destabilize Venezuela, Maduro also said that another high-profile assassination had been foiled.
Hoy se conoció públicamente a través de la Fiscalía General.
We are protecting our country from the attacks of capitalist paramilitaries linked to Colombia's right wing. That's why they are irritated, because we have blocked one of the places through which they were causing the greatest harm to Venezuela in this war. I will continue ahead, and I hope the Colombian government tunes into this fight against criminal economy.
We continue with our Latin American news coverage in Guatemala. The Supreme Court has approved a request by the country's Attorney General to impeach President Otto Perez Molina over his suspected involvement in a racket to siphon customs revenue from the government. The court passed the matter on to Congress for approval. Despite massive resignations of his cabinet members and other top officials, Perez Molina has refused to resign. Also, hundreds of thousands of Guatemalans have taken to the streets in recent weeks to demand his resignation.
Today, all Supreme Court judges met for an extraordinary session regarding a request for the impeachment of President Otto Perez Molina. Because of this, they met with the head magistrate of the Second Chamber of the Criminal Court of Appeals, Magistrate Gustavo Dubon. Then they studied the case, and after their respective analysis, they established that there exists the possibility of transferring the case to the Republic's Congress. Consequently, the request has been passed on to the Republic's Congress for its resolution.
In the meantime, former Guatemalan Vice President Roxana Baldetti was in court. She faces accusations that she took a cut of millions of dollars in bribes in the corruption scandal that has sent shockwaves across the country. The scandal has been called La Línea, or the line, after a phone hotline that was used in the scandal allowed importers into Guatemala to avoid paying customs duties in exchange for bribes. Those bribes were funneled into bank accounts owned by top officials. Protesters and activists are also calling on election reforms before the September 6 elections.
We definitely don't want elections. We want a provisional government. We want a national constituent assembly with suitable people to govern Guatemala.
And still in Guatemala, a court ruled that ex-dictator Efrain Rios Montt must face retrial for genocide during the country's civil war. The trial is expected to take place in January behind closed doors. Rios Montt will not have to declare, nor will he be able to be sentenced due to the mental illness which experts have said he suffers. The 89-year-old former dictator is accused of ordering the massacre of more than 1,700 Mayans between 1982 and 1983. He had already been sentenced to 80 years, but a court then ordered a retrial reclaiming irregularities. As all eyes remain in Ecuador on the puffs of ash that are still spewing from the Cotopaxi volcano, President Rafael Correa is alerting residents in this vicinity that their safety is of utmost importance to the government. He said many residents near the volcano will have to be relocated. The president visited communities that would be most affected by the volcano if it erupts, adding that flooding and destructive mud flows are serious threats to human safety. He said this could happen in as quickly as 10 minutes after the eruption. A yellow alert state of emergency is still being maintained in the areas surrounding the Cotopaxi volcano.
We have to learn to live securely with a very dangerous volcano which has been active for various years. But when the emergency settles down, we need to find land, build houses, and relocate certain communities, certain neighborhoods that are in areas of extreme danger.
Due to an agricultural crisis in Central America, the production of beans will be less than 50% compared to last year. This means that the price for consumers will rise, affecting Honduras's most vulnerable classes.
In Honduras, the production of basic grains such as beans, rice, and corn has been in crisis due to the lack of support from the government, and has become worse with the announcement that this year the bean production will only be the half of that produced last year.
We are used to eating beans, and even if the beans are expensive, it is still the least expensive thing to eat at breakfast and dinner, and sometimes even for lunch. We eat beans because they are cheap. Now in August the price will not increase, but in October it will, and the price will reach 160 lempiras for a medida of beans, double last year.
Beans are the basis of Honduran diet, and a medida is a 5-pound bag. This is how people buy it in the markets. The normal price is of $4, but because of the shortage, in less than 2 months, the price could be of $8 or more per medida.
We don't have enough beans, rice, corn, vegetables, or meat. We have to import enormous quantities, and the problem now is that we used to bring the beans that we didn't have from Africa, from Ethiopia, and they are now facing a plague. And it's a risk to bring contaminated beans, but there is not another country from where we could bring more beans. And in this moment, there is no possibility to improve this year's basic grains production.
The high prices will profoundly affect the poor, and campesinos won't have any income for the final months of this year. Hunger is expected to affect many communities, and a strategy from the government to deal with the situation is still being waited on. Gerardo Torres, Telesur, Central America.
Protests have continued in Beirut and across Lebanon as the garbage continued to pile up as the government has refused to resolve the trash handling issue. Analysts told Telesur the government has the resources but lacks the will to resolve the problem. Over the weekend, the protests turned violent. The demonstrators warned they will not end protests until they finish demanding for their rights. But many protesters say the issue is not only about garbage but also about elections.
The issue is far more than the garbage issue. We are still here because we still have a lot of rights that are our rights that we want and we claim the government to grant us. What we are demanding is a new electoral law that represents all the Lebanese youth, regardless of their sects. And then what we want is fairness in all its social and political means. Removing ourselves from these streets is not acceptable. We are not going to leave any of the streets until we finish demanding our rights.
A passenger ship carrying some 2,500 refugees set sail from the Greek island of Lesbos heading for the mainland. Local authorities are struggling to cope with the increasing wave of arrivals. Most of the refugees on the ferry are Syrians. The conflict in that country has displaced over 10 million Syrians. Over 3 million have been displaced internationally. So far this year, 300,000 or more people have crossed the Mediterranean this year. Nearly 180,000 are in Greece.
I hope to go to Athena. After Athena, I go to Macedonia, Serbia, Hungary, Austria, then Germany. It's a big journey, but it's our dream to continue our study. I also have petroleum engineering, and I hope to continue my study. That's all. And the last thing, I'm really very thankful to the great government, the great people. You are a great people here. And thank you for everything.
Serbia is also facing a major influx of migrants. Since July, over 40,000 have entered the country. The increase in migrants into Serbia has come after neighboring Macedonia gave up attempts to halt the flow of refugees. Serbian officials say they expect thousands of more refugees in the following days. Serbia has set up a center to receive the refugees and provide them with tents, food and medical assistance.
Well, for today, I can't tell you the exact number, but surely more than 2,000 people went through this center. Since July 8th, more than 40,000 people have gone through this center.
The King of Jordan, Abdullah, praised the input of Russian President Putin in a resolution of the Middle East crisis. Both leaders met at the Kremlin following an international air show. The king told Putin that Moscow had a vital role to play in bringing together the rival sides in Syria. In fact, Abdullah said he believes the only way a solution can be found for Syria is with the vital role of Russia. The Syrian conflict has left over 250,000 people dead since it began in 2011. The man suspected of carrying out a shooting on a French train last week has been linked to extremist organizations. French officials said Ayoub El-Kassani watched a jihadi video on board minutes before he opened fire on a train traveling between Amsterdam and Paris. The man was carrying an AKM rifle, 270 bullets and a can of petrol. Kassani has said he has not terrorist intentions. He added he only wanted to commit a robbery. But French police continue to investigate as they believe he has accomplices and funding sources.
Thanks to our news team in Quito, Ecuador for the World News Brief. To close now, Jeremy Flores of France won the Billabong Pro Tahiti Surfing Tournament in a spectacular display of fearless skill on a Tahiti beach in French Polynesia. He defeated reigning World Surf League champion Brazilian Gabriel Medina in the final. This is Flores' second major career victory. He is now 7th on the championship leaderboard after moving up 5 places thanks to his latest performance, in which he scored a near-perfect 9.87 on his first wave and a score of 7 on his second.
I have the best entourage, the best friends and family, and it's because of them that I got back to just enjoying, having fun, and being hungry like I used to be. And this year, that's what I've been kind of been doing, just out there to win it. And then if it doesn't happen, then it's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
For more on these and other stories, please visit our website, telesurtv.net/English for Telesur English. I'm Regan Devines. We'll have another news brief for you just after midday.